Welcome back, everyone, to the Nations Royale. We are ready for the lower bracket. I guess you can say finals to some extent for today, at least. It's going to be Finland against Russia starting in just a few moments. But for any of you guys who just tuned in now, missed out on all the action earlier, Saint, that was a quick one.
Yeah, I think that was probably the record for the quickest best of 5 we've ever had in Nations Royale. If it wasn't, it's got to be right up there. But
yes,
what a game we saw. And now we see Finland beating the Netherlands, Russia beating Hungary to get to these finals. Two teams that actually should have put up quite tough opposition, as we've seen both of those teams perform pretty well in the past on broadcast. So Finland, Russia doing well to get through. And now to face each other. I mean, realistically, are we thinking Russia's the favourite coming into this?
I would think so. Yeah, I would have to think so. I mean, we did see Finland. They were up against Turkey, I believe, last time we saw them. And they weren't a match, just like most other teams haven't been.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to put teams up against them and use that for comparison when they go up against other teams. But having said that, I don't know. I don't feel like Finland has as much of a threat potential as Russia does in terms of this tournament. We know there is a ton of stacked and good Finnish players, but look at the Russian roster. I mean, that's terrifying.
Yeah, I think it kind of reminds me of the Turkish roster in the fact that pretty much every player on the team has experience at a quite high level. But actually, I think the Finnish team as well, not quite to the same extent, but there's still over half that team has been at least in not necessarily tier 1 events, but there's a lot of players back in contenders when we had the Pro League structure. There's a lot of ex-contenders players in there. So
true.
I want to say this is going to be closer than what we just saw. I mean, it's very hard for it to be less close than that Turkey-Ukraine match we just saw. But I expect we're not going to have a 3-0 this time. That's my prediction.
No, my guess is going to be a 3-1 in favor of Russia, but let's see if it's going to come to be or if it won't. We are started out on the frozen tundra, I guess. I mean, at least it used to be. Now it's a little warmer, but regardless, we're heading on over to Vikendi, and I just want to see trains, to be fair.
Yeah, but I think this match is going to set the tone of the series, right? I think I can't remember the veto, but I believe it's Erangel the Miramar next. So there's a potential that we don't even have that Sanok match, which is usually the sort of the turning point in series. Traditionally we see like Erangel, Miramar, Sanok as the first 3, and one team wins the first 2, the other team comes back, arrests the momentum on map 3 in that Sanok. But the fact that we don't have that, the completely different play style of the Sanok in our first 3 games means that I think this match is going to be really important for setting the tempo. If Russia just comes out and stomps Finland, we might see another quick 3-0. But if Finland can surprise, not necessarily win the game, but if this is a close one, I think it's going to really prevent that sort of 3-0 from happening.
Well, there might be a chance. Let's see. First circle is going to be down towards the south. It's a pretty even split between the two teams now. There is a bit of a players on top of one another. Down towards the south side, we can see Trifley is by himself. A very talented Finnish player. Will he have enough of what it takes to take down these Russian players? It seems like they might just be running off, actually.
Yeah, but there's not really that strong a Finnish presence. There's a lot of Finnish players on the northwest, outside the circle, or at least on the edge of the northwest circle. So I think a lot of these players, like Trifley, have to be a little bit scared. The fact that they've dropped on their own means they pretty much just have to loot the house they're in and just stay there until the reinforcements come. But there's also, to an extent, Russia's doing the same. There's a lot of players out towards the east, Volnova especially. So these individual fights here are really important for setting the tempo of this match specifically. Because let's say one team wins 3 separate 1v1s across the map and opens up a man advantage.
Yeah,
I think both teams are good enough to use that to win a map out. And
that's the thing, right? I mean, we don't. It sounds rude to other teams to say, but since we don't have a Turkey here, you can. I feel like for the most part, go off of individual. Individual skill from the players to bring home a victory.
Yeah, and I think that's what we saw as sort of the play style from Russia in the past, where they're relying very much on their abilities in gunfights. And I mean, to an extent, that does work in Nations Royale. I think it works a lot more in this than it does maybe in some other game modes. But there does come a point where two teams are fairly evenly matched, and then it's about that strategy. If you're against a team where, even if it's, if it was like a 60-40%, if you went purely off gun skill, which I think this is, right? I think if you look at this, you'd say something like a 60-40 Russia.
Makes sense.
Off that, it then becomes which team can employ the better strategy, because if they're both pretty similar in gunfire, it then becomes a 50-50, and you never really want 50-50s.
Yeah, it's and even so, like even if it is let's see. Oh, deep, you gotta land that. Let's see, can you do it second time around? Left, right, nope. Zigzag. Nope, misses it.
Yeah, unfortunately, sniper rifle is not very good. So.
You say you never want 50-50s. I see what you're saying, but at the same time, that to me is when we kind of get to, I guess we can say, really see them be forced to try and play from a strategic standpoint instead of just YOLO rushing into one another. Because if it keeps evening out, then at some point you got to think that they would want to try something else and just sprinting into each other's faces, which is kind of what we've seen so far. And strangely enough, also kind of been what's been working for some teams.
Yeah, but if you look at Turkey, they'd never, especially early game, I'd say like phase 1 to phase 3, they very rarely take a gunfight where they're not the favorites to win. We look back to the Erangel game we just saw versus Ukraine, where they saw that there was only a small group of the Ukrainian players down in the scrapyard compound, and they just overwhelmed it and opened a man advantage that way. And every time they're looking for situations where they have the advantage and they're exploiting it. So I want to see which of these teams is best at exploiting those moments. And one way you can do that is by picking off these isolated players.
True. Seems like it's working out right now. It is even in numbers. But let's see, Kizik tapping away with an M4. It is going to be him to take down Trifley, and that should be a little bit of a sigh of relief, because it is the last player that at least this squad of Russian players had in the nearby surroundings. So that should open up an opportunity to to move around a little safer now that they have kind of cleared out all the weeds in the garden.
Yeah, and there's a little Finnish pocket on the southern side of the circle, and I want to see Russia exploit that. If they can shut down that group and open up a 4 or 5 man advantage, they should put themselves in a really strong position to close out the game. But I kind of feel like of these two teams, Finland's going to be the one that tries to innovate with strategy, because at least throughout this whole tournament, and from what we've understood from the players, Russia seems only interested in taking gunfights.
It has been the case for sure previously, and it might continue to be that way. I've seen teams to some extent have success in in changing up strategy over the course of a tournament. But I feel like whenever, and that's the funny thing to me, whenever we say, okay, so last season this nation kind of utilized that play style, they've kind of stuck with it, despite some nations swapping captains and whatnot over the course of the tournaments we've had. They've always kind of stuck with the same, like whether you're passive or aggressive, I shouldn't say.
Oh, mistakes were made by Levy, and Marcy gets him down. And that's going to be a 2-man advantage opening up early for Russia, which is nice. And if Deepo flushes kill there, there's a potential for 3, but a trade does come into Marcy. Is there a res there?
Ooh.
No,
Might be able to.
There's a lot of knocks coming in favor of Finland, actually. So it was a little bit of a man advantage for Russia. Might turn back the other way here if Finland can flush out these players. But now I'm looking at this circle, and Russia has a really nice sort of aggressive defensive line. Sounds a bit ironic, but they have this sort of concave on the northern side, which is locking Finland out of the circle. And if Finland just tries to rush into that, it's going to be very difficult to make their way into the circle. So I want to see a lot of the Finnish roster now come through Milnar all the way to Pilnek and take control of that hilltop where Minna is currently on his own. Because was it Hungary versus Ukraine? Hungary versus Norway. I think we saw a fight there where
we're down by the bottom where they rotate all the way around.
Yeah, and the team that swung around and came up from the south was the team that eventually won out of the game. So I kind of want to see that from Finland. Whether they recognize that is the way into the circle for them or not, I'm not sure. And
flank attempt.
Whether they just want to go for a gunfight early on, just commit to a 20 versus 10. if they can find one instead. There's also another way they can win, because there is that pocket on the north, which they might be able to exploit.
Yeah, we'll see. Circle's going to start closing in. Actually, it is closing in already. Will that get them the... will they have enough time, I guess we should say, to make that play? Because it's not going to be an easy one. They need to, if they want to wrap all the way south around, then they probably need to find some more vehicles. It seems like there's a few cars on the west side. You see Poro where they are. There's a lot of pluses down there. So that's a little bit of a cavalry rotating around. Maybe they are right. Maybe they are going for that south around play.
Yeah, and that's where the little forward operating base that Mikaz and Litskis have set up, just east of Pilnak. That's where that's coming in really strong, because they now know that area of the map is safe and that they can move into it. He just landed the luckiest headshot of his life. Willu gets a kill. Will he get a... I don't think we'll get a flush. And he is definitely going to get a flush there. But that was a nice little lucky headshot. But we'll always take a bit of luck.
Arguably called pretty damn fortunate.
But yeah, we see that big Finnish group now has swung around on the south and found a way onto the hilltop. The circle has gone east, which means that this hilltop now is pretty much where the circle's going to end. Right? It's like a 90% of the playable area now. So realistically, it's all about, can Finland fight their way up the hill and take control of the area around Hirzin before the rest of the Russian reinforcements could come in and hold them out.
I feel like if you're Russia, you don't... there's no reason to postpone the game for another circle. You just fortify the winery and like the vineyard up in this area, and then you kind of close it out that way. I would assume at least that's what they're going to be doing. You can see that it's kind of what they're doing too. They already have the 6-player number advantage, and I don't know. It seems to me like they should just go up and try and see if they can finish it right here, right now. It seems like that's what's happening.
Yeah, as long as they can hold this western edge of the circle and force Finland to sort of stay down in this valley, they can pretty much just set up a bit of a kill zone and just start taking out the Finnish players. And we see now that man advantage is in Finland's favor, but the kill feed is looking very Finnish.
Yeah, they're starting to turn things around now. There are coming some Russian kills. There are some Russian kills coming into the feed as well, but 8 players down for Finland. They are the ones trying to push forward. And as you can see, if the Russian team... the Russian bunch up there on the northern side managed to kind of collapse on Finland from behind too. That's going to make staying alive for Finland extremely difficult.
Yeah, and now Finland's starting to get a bit disorganized, starting to get sort of stuck into these little groups. We have pretty much half the Finnish roster that's not involved in this fight at all, with a little group up in the north and a little group to the east. And now Russia's just starting to pick them apart. And that 9-man advantage, which actually I think is a little bit more than that if you take into account the amount of players knocked, is looking very Russian.
It does seem to be going in their favor. And you reach points where, with the numbers the way that they are, you're just not going to turn it around. Right now, they're 2-1, and this is going to be tough. This is going to be real tough. Now, there are a lot of Russian players bundled up, and I was just going to say, if they can get some good nades in there might be a chance.
Yeah.
But is there going to be enough? I'm not sure. There are a lot of Finnish names in the kill feed, but will it be enough? I am not quite certain.
Yeah, this group needs to do a lot of damage, because there is actually quite a strong Finnish contingent already in the circle. There's, I think, 8 or 9 players towards that eastern edge. But if they're the only players left alive against 21 Russians, it's going to become so difficult for them to win. The little group that's left on the west needs to do damage, make sure they're flushing out their kills, and that's just not quite happening. And the fact that that group to the east is just not having an impact on this fight means that Russia has effectively came into this gunfight with the 10-man advantage. And the fact that they converged on it and put pretty much their entire roster there meant that they could just shut down Finland. And now, if you go purely off the numbers, 20-8, it's going to be really rough for this Finnish. The remaining forces to hold on.
You can see that all the remaining players from Finland are scattered all over the place, and I'm not seeing them be able to really get that going whatsoever. It's going to be really tough for them to do it.
I think realistically you're expecting this to be a 1-0, but now it's all about how much damage can Finland do. Can they make sure this is close? Can they show that they're capable? Because if Russia wins this and it's a big blowout, as it's sort of looking right now, they then come into those next 2 games with a lot of confidence. I said this game is going to set the tempo, and if Finland really can't show that they can win those gunfights, then the tempo is all in Russia's favor.
Not that many players left alive for Finland, but the ones that are there are doing everything they can to stay alive. Shaxi and Sampula are getting called out. There's a hunt going on, and there's a hunt for Finnish players. Shaxi's found. Sampula is trying to make a run off, and I'm wondering how much effort will these Finnish players put in to try and stay alive, as opposed to maybe just kind of not forfeiting, but admitting defeat to some extent and let them be found.
I think at this point you just go and you just try and take those gunfights, and if you get 3 kills, you've done your job. But you're not really at 1 if you're trying to fight 3 players at the same time. Realistically speaking, this I think it's gonna be the end of the game now.
I think there's one more player left alive, and it should be over any moment now. There you have it. Finland will take home game number 1 in what wasn't as blowout as we've seen in earlier games today, but definitely a pretty convincing Russian victory nonetheless. There was times where I was thinking, okay, you know what, Finland might be able to turn this one around, but you can just kind of tell, and we've seen that from Russia before. Once they go, okay, 3-2-1, davai, then it's very hard to stop them.
And I think the problem really was that Finland wasn't one group. We saw that big flank come round where they swung around the western side. They got a big group up towards the southern hill, but there was 10, maybe even 15 players still stuck to the north that didn't come with. There was a little group to the east as well that left the southern, the main battle force. And Russia just collapsed in it. And because those players weren't there to join in the fight, whilst Russia were pretty much one death blob, it meant that realistically Russia already had a 10-man advantage coming into that fight and were able to just trade their way to success. And we see here it turned into a situation where Finland was getting a lot of knocks. They were getting a lot of knocks in that fight, but because there was that big deficit in the man advantage by that group on the east, it meant that they couldn't really flush out the kills because they kept getting traded. And it just turned into a big win for Russia. So I want to see Finland group up. I want to see them take it for gunfight and just commit the team to it.
And I feel like
if you lose that, that's your game over.
Yeah, I feel like that was their downfall in the earlier games we've seen. Like the reason that they're now playing from the losers bracket is that we saw moments, so many moments, in fact, where they just tried to do too many things. I mean, they were trying to put in too many strategies, and every single time you split up into a smaller group, that is you needing to have that much better communication. It's so damn difficult to put to be able to do in practice. But guys, that's going to be game number 1. More games coming your way. You can see in the bottom the Veto was done before. We just finished with Candy. We're heading on over to Erangel next, so stick around. We'll see you in just a few. Russia brings home the Vikendi match to get the lead 1-0 up against Finland. Welcome everyone to Nations Royale. I'm Toby, joined by Saint, and we are getting closer and closer and closer to finding out who is going to be this season's champions in the EMEA region for this tournament of Nations Royale. And Saint, my money are still on Turkey, but is there anything that you've seen from Russia just now that could potentially make you think of Russia as winning the finals should they get there?
I think in that game they were strategically sound, at least. Like they recognized that gunfight was going to happen on the west, and they forced the Finnish players down the ridge, and then they just committed the entire team to the roster. And we see 18 of the 32 players actually got a kill in that game, and there were a lot more that had an impact. So the fact that they committed so many players to that gunfight means that I'm optimistic for their chances. At least strategically speaking, when they come against Ukraine, if provided they get through this, and then maybe Turkey in the final if they can beat Ukraine. I do have to say that I think Turkey's still going to win, but I think from what we've seen, Russia might be the team to contend with them.
I mean, now, when Russia and Turkey played last time, it was a 3-0. But given that it's going to be a best-of-7 finals, does that mean it's going to be a 4-0 or potential 4-1? I mean, again, taking for granted that Russia gets there now, can't count Finland out of it just yet, because despite them losing the last game, there were moments where I thought that maybe they have what it takes to turn it around.
Yeah, there was like a they were 90% there. They recognized they had to come around the south. They did that well, and then they just didn't group up. There was that one crucial moment that defined the game really, when the group was left on the north and couldn't help out in that gunfight, and that really defined the whole game. But the fact that they look pretty good in terms of their rotations, so there is definitely potential there. And I don't think what we saw there was as close. I think the 16-0 is not really telling about how close the game actually was.
True.
Because I think there was a point really where there were probably 10 or maybe even less Russian players actually up. There were so many knocks, and Finland just couldn't flush out those players. And the game really is very different if they come out of that far on the West with only 10 up.
Also, I feel like once you hit that middle point, where it's like the ship sinking, right? Once you have enough below water, it doesn't matter if there's still a good chunk of it above. It's going to sink. I mean, you're gonna die, and that's the same thing here. I feel like you can oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes determine a winner by who goes down, like by a deficit of, let's say, 5 or 6 players first.
Yeah, but it's very rare that we see a comeback.
Yeah, exactly. So even though it's a 16-0, what turned the game into a Russian win could have happened way earlier than that. Like, because the last 10 kills always just going to be slaughters, right?
Yeah, realistically, once that team gets, I think it's the advantage is not an issue until let's say phase 4, phase 5, when you see that big gunfight happen. Interesting, Nate. Quite sure that's a
creativity.
I don't know who he's nading.
No, I mean, maybe he didn't know himself either. I'm not sure.
I suppose, but I think those. Let's say you lose 2 players at the start of the game. Something goes wrong. They crash a compound. There's people already there. You have sort of 3 circles to correct that. To right the wrong before it becomes an issue. But when you get to that phase 4 or 5 and you need to take a big gunfight, if the other team just commits their whole roster to you, it's becomes so. You need to make a hero play to have any chance.
Yeah. Well, who knows? Maybe that hero play is going to be happening right now. Marsik has gone down. The punches are coming in. Did that just curse them, or did that give them what they needed to have the aggression to get the win? I'm not sure. Just Baum knows that the Metrics is around, and he's pushing forward with a mini, which obviously isn't the weapon of choice for close quarter combat. Nope, he's gonna fall.
That's where maybe those nades the Metrics through might come in handy, but he should be able to get that kill. I don't think there's an opportunity to flush it. But never mind. Oh no, he's got a nade. No, that's not a nade. You have a frag. Why is he flash?
Should have thrown a nade. No, he didn't.
Nade.
Huh, that would have been a kill. Interesting.
It might have been 2. Okay. I'm not going to question it. He's still actually going to get can he get the flush this time around?
He should be able to.
Is he going to overextend? I've already, now he runs across this gap and just gets knocked as he does it. There we go. I don't know why I didn't use that. No.
And then he gets knocked.
Unfortunately.
He did throw his nade, though. Unfortunately, it was a little too late. So they're down by 2 now. They have the circle, the Finnish team, up by 2, I should say. And they have the circle to a pretty good extent as well. What does Russia do here to find a good footing in the circle? Do they go West Coast?
Yeah, I think you just wait until everyone's ready with your guns, right? And then you just drive as a big group down in this West, because realistically, the team that has the circle is going to be spread out. They're going to be taking the strong positions, spread out, particularly on the hills, I think, on the center, around just to the south of Kyoto, maybe around the quarry area as well. But the Finnish team's not really going to be centralized on a specific position. So there becomes an opportunity where if you can just blob as the Russian, you go as your death stack, crash into a group of 5 or 6, you can right the wrong of that man disadvantage, maybe even flip it in your favor by just overwhelming a little group.
Let's see. Everyone is pushing forward. I'm always looking for vehicles, because that's pretty, especially on the likes of, I guess, everything except for Sanok. Vehicles are pretty damn important when it comes to rotating forward, especially if you're not the team with the circle in your favor. If you have to rotate fast, if you have to get between 2 points with a lot of people, like 5 cars just ain't gonna cut it on a team of 32. You never want to have 4 guys in a car in any given situation, I feel like. So get a ton of vehicles and start moving forward. And I feel like that's maybe part of the reasons why teams started doing the whole, let's not just do the whole you loot east, we loot west. We need the cities, we need the vehicle spawns.
Yeah, and obviously we're not on esports mode, so a lot of there's no hard spawns, and a lot of the Russian players were sort of in George. I think it was about 20 players all in the same place. So we can see now there's a lot of players actually on foot. It might actually get a bit lucky for them, as they might be able to pick off these individual players. But if the circle now comes southeast, there are a lot of these Russian players here that don't have a vehicle, and which, as you said, is so important on this map at least. It's going to they should get this kill. I mean, there's no one there to res, so halving the deficit. But still, this group not having cars, those players now, it takes them so long to get into the circle, and they also the sort of the direction they can go is very one-dimensional, because they can't do a big flank like we saw Finland do last game. They can't rotate around. They just have to run in. And let's say the circle now comes towards Ferry, right? That big group on the northwest, I think, has 1 or 2 cars between them. So yes, you get maybe 7 players in the circle, but you become split up because you then have 5 more players that have to run in that can't group up with that group. And you get split up, and that's when Finland can punish you by being in those different groups.
Well, there are a few Russian players inside the circle. I think it's 4, maybe 5, inside the compound up there on the northern side. You can see Yuxik found Minas, so they are doing damage. They have their presence been known, and maybe that's going to be kind of the entry point for what I will call the Russian spearhead, the Russian main army, who are currently a little further up towards the north. But maybe they don't want to overcommit to going all the way down to the center of the circle. They might as well just wait for the circle 2 to pop, because if it goes north, then, well, it didn't. Then I would say they could have started splitting out around Gatka instead.
What did I say? If we get a ferry circle, that group has to run in, and it can't get to the good positions in the circle. I wish. Are we going to get one on the ferry pier? Because it is possible. But anyway, yes, they have a few cars now. I think that's why they were waiting on the north, to bring a couple extra cars and rotate in. But realistically, they have to play from the north here. And if the circle now shifts southeast again and goes straight towards ferry pier, there really isn't anywhere for those people on foot to go.
Jacob pushes forward. The remaining teammates will follow. I wonder how many bikes they have. Also, do you have your scout on a bike? And why haven't we seen more BRDMs? So many questions left unanswered.
Now, the big downside to the BRDMs is you have to wait for so long to get them. It takes about 40 seconds. And in that time, you could be taking a gunfight. You could be rotating into a good position in the circle. I think that's why, actually, I think flare guns should be in competitive, because there's a big disadvantage to actually being forced to wait for it. Because you pop one now. At best, it arrives 5 seconds before phase 3, starts. So in that time, you have to stay in one place. You can't, if you want the crate or you want a BRDM, you can't drive off somewhere else. Go do something. You sort of get locked to a position. So I kind of feel like that's why we don't see as many BRDMs, and often we don't see the flare gun crates unless someone's sent a circle earlier. A lot of time left in that zone.
Well, that alongside with once you fire it, everyone knows where you are.
In this game, I don't think it's that important, right? Because
no, I'm talking about competitive.
When we go to squads, it becomes a bit scary when you pop it and suddenly you've got 4 teams just staring at you, trying to get you killed as you run to the crate. I think is that the first time we've seen a glider be used?
I feel like it is.
Oh, we're getting a field ending. What a surprise.
I also wonder how fast they will get shut down once they go over enemy territory. I mean, they can get a ton of info from up there, but you've got to feel like they get shut down instantly. But now you can see bullets already flying forward.
There's that one caveat. They don't get blown up, right?
Yeah,
it stops the engine. So realistically, yes, you get shot out of the sky, but you just land. And as long as you're not flying too far away from where your teammates are, you have time to turn around and just land where you are. So I kind of like this. It reminds me of in World War One, they had those like blimps that they put up, right? And they'd send someone up and sit in the blimp and just look around. It's almost like they're holding this blimp up above the main group just so they can have a look around. And I think it actually works really nicely. It's as you said, it's great information. But I don't think they necessarily need it, because it looks like they're going to go for a bit of a push into the walled compound on the western edge.
Just found accidentally shot Hades. Willow finds one that's not a teammate. Fortunately, that's an opponent. Willow is by himself though, so for him, hopefully he can get the flush out early. Not going to happen with that nade, that's for sure. But he is kind of isolated in the wizard tower from his teammates.
Yeah, when you do get stuck like that, you just have to have an impact. Right? Realistically, you're not going to get more than 1, at best maybe 2 kills. But you have to make sure that's what you get at least. As long as you're trading 1 for 1, it's not the end of the world, especially when it's 29-29. It just becomes 28-28. So if you do get stuck like this, as long as we're at least having the impact like is there, I don't necessarily see something wrong with it. And there's a potential here that because they're committing players over for the res, you might get a second one.
See, Tavo is sitting, trying to hide it out as best as he can. Lopes finds one. That's Kissick gone down. But I feel like, Tavo's got to let his presence be known at some point. You can't sit around and watch your teammates die forever.
Oh, Willie's got another one, but he does get traded. We see the kill feed there. And I don't actually know if he got the flush as well. But, we see there's a lot of individualistic play coming in from Finland right now, where they have these solos that are sort of stuck in the compound. They're having a bit of an impact. They're keeping the man advantage relatively... Well, they're keeping it at 27-27. But I'm a little bit nervous. I think it's better off to just stay as a group. And the fact that these players have got isolated, it's luckily for them, it's working out. Oh no.
This is not going too well.
I've seen better flying in my
Mayday, boing. There we go. That's the landing if I've seen one. Daniman is AFK.
Did he crash? I think he's crashed. Because he's still revving the engine. Yeah.
Jason, pretty impressive landing.
Lucky for battling. Yeah. Lucky it didn't flip because I think it was turning and going down at the same time. So lucky that he survives that. But yeah, I think he's crashed.
Yeah.
His eyes are closed.
Yeah, he is sleeping. Seems like it anyway. Let's see. Mesoli made his way inside the compound again, spread all over the place. They do still have the numbers advantage, Finland, and we are kind of waiting for that final engagement to start as we see Daniman chill out. Circle goes east. We're headed into the open, and you've got to give the benefit here, in terms of circle, this is Finland written all over it. They can stay in the forest on the south side and just kind of, chill and wait for all the Russian players to be out in the open.
Yeah, Russia, we saw earlier, they didn't really have many cars, right? Yeah, that's exactly why they're on this northwest, because a lot of them had to run into the circle. So now if it then comes into the field, if it then comes anywhere except north, it becomes very difficult for any of those Russian players to get in the zone because they're just going to get shut down as they try and run in. So realistically, you have to say Finland's at the advantage this game, but we saw last game how good Russia were in gunfights. They're finding these isolated players now that they can trade, but it's not really going well. Kovalev shuts down 2 and gets in the cover. So the 3-man advantage now for Finland. I think this might be a 1-1.
It might just be 3 players advantage. It's not enough for me to call it quits for Russia yet. But having said that, as you can see, they are extremely cornered on the northwest side. Should the next circle go northwest to some extent, allowing for them to stay up on the hill? I'd say there's a chance. But as you can see here, it's just a matter of time before Finland gets some of these sneaky snakes in from behind, and then you have to say that it's going to go their way.
Yeah, we said at the start of the game that phase 4, phase 5 is when the man advantage starts to hit home. And if Finland can keep it around a 3 or a 4-man advantage, if they can continue to shut down players with this little Western group, then realistically it doesn't really matter where the circle goes because Finland can start to overwhelm. But yeah, there is that one caveat of how open this area of the map is. If Russia then gets a favourable shift north and this big southern group has to come in and all those vehicles are getting shot constantly, then yeah, there's an opportunity here for Russia to win. And if they can shut down this little attack squad from Finland without losing too many players to it, then maybe they can turn an advantage back in their favour.
I feel like right now their main threat or main focus point has to be making sure that Russia or that Finland doesn't get that hill. Because if they have both the field, the forest, and the northwest or the western hilltop control, then you're just sitting ducks in the open. So I really like the fact that they didn't run down to their teammates once the fight started on top. They actually pushed up to try and take control. And I'm surprised to see Finland hasn't done more to maybe try and contest it.
Yeah, Faultlessly and Severakka did a really good job of just preventing the Finnish players from getting up top. They're starting to shut down what's left. I think Sampuda's now last one up. And we spoke about Finland's man advantage being useful. Where's it gone? It's gone. And now it's 21v21. And all of a sudden, this circle is still slightly favouring Finland with their shack control in the middle. But the western side of this field is quite undulating, I think is the word to use. There's little ridges around that you can play around, particularly where Vanos is, sort of on the western side. There's an area you can play there, which really cuts off cover from the east side. So there's an opportunity here where maybe the Russians can get away with not having those vehicles, and maybe can play on foot a little bit more than if the circle had gone more eastern.
This is going to be tough, though. We'll see. You can see all they really have to. I mean, with the more cars you can kind of throw into this field and blow up, the better off you're most likely going to be. Because as you can see here, that's all you're going to have for cover. I mean, shacks, broken BRDMs, and whatever vehicles and smokes you bring in. And with Russia having control of the hillside like that, Finland is going to be in all kinds of trouble for a good while longer.
Yeah, but Russia, I think, needs to start trying to find a man advantage, use the high ground to get some kills, right? Because they're still at a disadvantage when that main fight will break out because of the realities of the circle. So if they can maybe get a 3 or 4 man advantage, there's an opportunity where they can just overwhelm. And if they're getting individual players like this with the Zuna overextending in the car, which finally shuts down, if they keep doing that sort of thing to try and get map control, or if Russia can shut down this southwestern group that needs to leave probably on that circle, there's an opportunity where Russia can overcome the bad position by just overwhelming.
That's what I'm looking for, Kune. What can you do? What can you do with a gun?
Yeah, I think that shack there is going to be really important with where Heppes is. If they can have an impact from that position, especially with this circle where it's dead center, if they can have an impact from that position and get a fair few kills, then it should be Finland's game. But I'm looking at this and I'm very nervous for that southwestern group now. They need to get into the circle. Russia has enough ground that they can probably shut down the places they run in. So it's looking a little bit rough. I mean,
Russia does need to get down from the hill too, and I feel like the people in the field can't really push all that far until the hill people come down too, and they will have to move, most importantly, before the guys that are in the compound southwest will. So I feel like Finland has time now where they can sit, as you can see right now, follow the guys trying to make their way down, and try and kind of get as many kills as they can off of that to then focus the fight into the field with the man advantage.
Yeah, it seems like they have some cars in the southwestern compound. I just watched the map stream that we have, and 3 people drove out. So they have a few vehicles over there, which will help protect them. You just shot the bush. But anyway, yeah. So they can escape, luckily for them. Because if that was shut down and we got like a 5-6 advantage, then I kind of felt like it would be Russia's game. But now, with it being fairly even, I would say it's something like a 60-40, maybe 70-30 if they were Finland right now.
I couldn't number something like that. It's all, to me, this is all going to come down to who lands the shots. Like right here, right now, this is going to be an open field ending. I feel like this ending is going to be as even as you could make them.
It's just that bit of hard.
It's just one open field.
Yeah, but it's that shack that, as I said, is going to be so influential in this because it is the only piece of hardcover left in this circle. It's the only position where you can shoot from it, get knocked, and get rezzed. If you're getting knocked in these fields, you're dead. That's your game over. But using that position, if they can use it effectively, which so far they have been doing Finland, then they can start to extend the man advantage in their favor and really use it to isolate where the Russian players are. But for now, it's still a fairly even game.
Yeah, it sure is. It's 19-18 in favor of Finland. You can see Russia having to try and do something here. They're trying to make their way around. Now, maybe Trifty wants to start considering using a first aid rather than the 17 bandage shells because Russia's knocking on the door, and I don't think they're coming to sell coupons of any kind. I think they want that shack and start stalling people.
Yeah, really now we're seeing 2 separate fights break down. We've got the west and the eastern side. And I think this eastern one is really the important thing because Russia can start to get a concave on the Finnish players around the shack and shut down the cover. And these nades are big.
One nade there would be absolutely crucial, but they just can't seem to find the target as I say that. Jupsik got knocked by the flying bike, and that, my friends, is a whole hell of a lot of Finnish players on their knees.
Yeah, and if Chifley gets shut down here, if Scooby can get a nade through the window, suddenly this goes from something that was looking in Finland's favor to be completely the opposite of that. And the circle has gone north as well. The circle's gone in favor of Russia. The shack is still in the south, but suddenly the kill feed is just looking very Russian.
It is going to be a really close one. This one, it's been very one-sided fights all day today so far. This one could be the first that we're going to see where it literally could come down to the last 1 or 2 players standing. The circle, as you said, has gone towards the northwest, so somewhat favoring the Russian team. They are up by 5 now. The numbers are starting to go even more so in their favor. Was it really all they had to do? Wait for that one circle shift to go towards them in order to close out the game?
No, I think it was more that they put so much pressure on the southwest and the northeast, and they started to get a bit of a wraparound on this shack, where Hepis was. They started to make it so that shack was essentially unplayable, and then now they've got control of it, and then suddenly the remaining Finnish players have absolutely nowhere to go, and Chifley's going to get shut down, and there we go. Russia goes up 2-0.
2-0 Russia. That's yeah. I don't want to say it's surprising that they end up winning the game, but to me it's somewhat surprising that they managed to bring it home the way that they did. I mean, I thought Finland had a couple of moments during that game where they could have maybe sealed it had they done more to try and maybe fortify the hilltop when Tavu and I remember who else was up there, but when they started getting somewhat of a footing on the hill, they could have pushed one more, two more, maybe four more people up there to try and take control. Again, it's a matter of, I don't know if it's allowing Russia in or if it's Finland not being able to hold them out in situations where I feel like they should commit more to try and kind of isolate them.
Yeah, this game kind of felt like a chess match with there was a lot of posturing at the start where you were moving around trying to find a chink in the armor. And then there was an opportunity for a checkmate from Finland if they'd just committed to that hill with a bit more players that they just didn't see. I mean, they did see it, but they just didn't commit enough players to it. And the fact that, that Russia survives that, it then becomes about, where the circle goes. If the circle goes south, Finland, I think, just win that out. But, you have that one shift that just completely screws with the Finnish plan. And suddenly Russia are in the driving seat and they just start to overwhelm the Finnish roster, who then, is in disarray. I mean, you go from being in such a strong defensive position to suddenly having to find a way to leave it. It just swung. That one shift, I think that one nade really changed the course of the game.
I mean, they were committing a lot of people to one check, and as much as you were saying, that's the hard cover, that's the positions you can be safe in. Allow your opponents within nade distance, and all of a sudden you aren't that safe any longer. And I feel like at the same time, you can't really. I mean, yes, the circle went in the favor of Russia, but it was phase 7, right? Normally these games are done by phase 4, phase 5. So I'm not saying they're blaming it on that, but if you can't win a game because they get a circle in phase 7, then it probably just wasn't going to go your way at all.
Yeah, it's a bit of a you problem, but I think you can't underestimate the power of that little group on the southwest. They swung around, and the shack I said that Hepis was on was only strong because the south side was safe. And as soon as that southwest group, sort of snuck around and got a bit of pressure on the shack, suddenly it was unplayable. You couldn't sit on it because every angle was being shot at. And by pushing that way, it completely destroyed what front line the Finnish had and allowed the Russians to start to overwhelm it.
Exactly. Well, that's going to be it for game number 2. Finland go down 0-2 to Russia. They're not out of it yet. There's still a chance for them to turn things around, but that will require them winning 3 games in a row. We're going to take a short break, guys, and we'll be back and ready with Miramar in just a few, so stick around. We'll see you soon. Russia are up 2-0 and trying to fight their way to a maybe an earlier finish. They should be able to bring home the next win on Miramar and claim the win 3-0 in this best of 5. I'm Toby, joined by Saint, and we are bringing to you the Nations Royale matches here. GLL and Saint 2-0. First one, very convincing. Second one, could have gone either way. Are we looking at a 2-1 now? Maybe it's things going in favor of Finland?
I think of all the maps that you could, when I say all the maps, there's 2 maps you could have got here, Miramar or Sanok. And I think Miramar is the worst possible thing because you've just had 2 maps that play almost identically. Vikendi, Erangel, and Miramar play fairly similarly in Nations Royale. Sanok is the one where it's a bit of a question mark, a bit of a difference. True. So coming into a match where you've just lost 2 that play out so similarly, I think you have to be a little bit nervous if you're Finland. But based off what we saw in game 2 there, there was that. Once again, I kind of feel like in game 1 as well, they were 90% of the way there. They had a nice position and they just didn't close it out. So there was definitely signs of life in game 1 and 2, which says to me that maybe we'll see it in game 4. Maybe we'll see that Sanok. But I think you have to come into this and you think Russia's probably the favorite.
Yeah, no, can see here. Almost everyone on the Russian team has found a kill so far. It's actually not too often. I mean, despite teams winning games, there always tend to be a couple who just aren't in the right place at the right time, or maybe they're at the wrong place at the wrong time. I mean, it's just it's funny how you think if like your average competitive or public match game, if you can get like 3-4 kills, then that's a decent game for you. If can you get 6-7, that's a pretty good game. If you can get like double-digit kills in a normal comp game, then you're like really having a good game. Whereas to here, I feel like with very few exceptions, people that get 5 kills have had like some sort of master performance.
Yeah, or they've shot a car that's got 4 people in it.
Or that.
Yeah. You either get really lucky or you do something nuts. And that's the only way you get more than 1 kill. And like getting 2 kills on this is really important because time and time again we speak about the strength of a man advantage. So if you're one of those players that early game gets 2 kills before you get traded, I mean, yes, it's only 1 in favor of your team, but if 3 or 4 of your players on the team can do the same thing, suddenly it's a 4-man advantage. If some of those players start to stay up after getting 2 kills, you can really open up that advantage. But we see a circle here. It's pretty equal. I mean, both teams have a chance to get in. And we've seen both games now. Finland's been sort of defensive. I mean, yes, on Vikendi, they moved into a bad position and then Russia pushed them out of it on that southern hill. But neither time you really see Finland crash into a Russian stronghold. And I think on this circle, with the fact that Russia has an easier rotation from like that San Martin area, suggests that maybe we'll see a bit of a reversal of the playstyle here.
Let's see. Lasaha is going to be the focus point, at least for now, with players from both nations inside. Solf has found one of the Finnish players, but no flushes come in just yet. And you can see here, Raw, he's heard Alia around the corner. Oh, no, Alia actually spins on him and gets the kill.
Yeah, Battling, I think, actually helped out from behind as well. So a great timing there, lucky timing maybe, for Alia to get the kill and now man advantage early on in Russia's favor. But I think this fight here is really important for the game because if the players can't successfully shape 1-for-1, what a nade by Willie. That's perfect. That is exactly the kind of impact you need to have. But can he flush the second kill? I'm not sure.
If you're Priel here, you're pissed.
Yeah.
First, Pashkes, first he knocks his teammate, and then sure it comes to rest, but then he actually gets flushed out too. That's gonna be a feels bad.
Yeah, and I think this fight really is important for the whole game because if one team comes out of this with a big advantage, they can just start to snowball effect. But if you're making mistakes like that where you're losing your players because of team kills, because of team knocks at least, then even if you are winning this gunfight, the man advantage you come out of it with is only going to be like 2 or 3. Bye here isn't. Yeah, you're not long for this world.
I feel like Finland is, they as a team, Finland is starting to make smarter decisions. Moving around together, playing it smart. One thing I've never understood though is if you're, I don't know if it's stubbornness or lack of communication or what it is, but if you're if you're flying into a city and seeing an equal amount of opponents going into that city as well, just go away.
And now we see that
what went so well for them just turned around now.
Yeah, when you mean that little Finnish group, they didn't really group up. I think they were in 2 separate 3-man teams. Whereas Russia just grouped up as a 7. And then they just started blobbing, just started running it at every sound they heard, started shutting it down. And now, all of a sudden, there's 3 players left in this city versus, 8 Russian players maybe. Realistically speaking, Mikaz needs to do something incredible here. Minna as well. They need to have do something nuts to have any impact to this game. Mikaz so low as well. Yeah, there we go. Just gets taken down. And
that's your captain falling early, right? That's gonna be tough.
But let's say these 3 players go down without even getting 1 now. We're looking at 28-21. If Masuli goes down as well, 7-man disadvantage coming into this. Here we go. 7-man disadvantage in phase 1.
That ain't it.
That's rough. Yeah,
that ain't it. Not how you want to be starting off your potential final game, not just of the day, but of the tournament as a whole. That is really damn unfortunate.
Yeah, and I was going to say at least Masudi looks good doing it, but he's not even got the best M4 skin, so looking bad whilst doing it. Nyotkash going forever, by the way. But anyway, back to the game. We see Russia's starting to shut down another little group on the southern edge that's trying to rotate in here. Sampula, I don't think it's very long for this world as Russia are trying to collapse in, but they're just picking off these players one by one. And for some reason, it seems like if we go back to the Turkey match we just saw, the third game, it just seems to be a bit more crazy at the start of the match. You know, the start of the match, I mean, it's not quite the Sanok game that we just witnessed, but this start of the game has been really aggressive for what we're sort of used to.
True. That's been a little more accurate than what we've seen so far, but it tends to be, right, when you have a team losing 2 games in a row. And then it's not like they're giving up coming into the last game, but they go, okay, now we've got to change something because we have our backs against the wall. So they go a little more aggro. And then sometimes that can work out surprisingly well. And sometimes the other team is kind of ready for it to some extent. And it just doesn't work at all.
Yeah, I'm skeptical of whether Finland actually needed to do that because they didn't look bad in either game. You know, I said before this one that both times they were sort of 90% there and just that last little moment made a mistake. But coming into this, I think taking these isolated early gunfights is the biggest mistake they've made so far in this series. And the fact that now they're 27-17 down, I mean, I wouldn't say it's impossible to come back from, but realistically,
difficult.
You're relying on Russia to make mistakes.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. You need them to make a blunder of a rotation, which we just haven't seen. And that's what scares me even more. The fact that Russia, which seems to be a very dominant team in this game right now, and like they seem to have everything under control, they seem like their rotations are on point, they're hitting the shots when they have to, they're making smart decisions overall, they got 3-0'd by Turkey. I mean, I just can't boggle my mind around that because with the way that Russia is playing, that even when they get circles and potentially like technically games going against them, they manage to turn things around. That they can get wrecked so hard by Turkey, that's pretty wild to me.
Man, I kind of feel like if they rematch, that's not going to happen again. But based off what we've seen, I think, from this series, I don't think it happens again.
No, maybe not.
Although, I mean, I say that. I mean, what we saw Turkey, Ukraine, it's ridiculous.
My point exactly. Well, that's another game, not even a guaranteed one. Let's see here if Finland has anything up against Russia. Coyote is looking for kills. Pokemolodoy is found. Coyote gets one. Ain't gonna be able to fight more though. Goose gets his teammate and Coyote with a little bit of collateral damage, but overall it's all right because the rest will be coming in.
Now, right now we have 3 players in the entire server that's in the circle because they're just taking this big gunfight. Maybe there's a mistake here from Russia. I don't think they have that many vehicles in the south, so maybe they might lose a couple of players to the blue. But it's just at a point where it doesn't matter. I mean, we look at this. You know, we've got 4 Finnish cars trying to come in from the southern edge. If one of those cars drives into a Russian enemy, they're dead. You know, that's what they're up for. Just as long as they hit the shots. As long as you hit your shots, Checo.
And
there we go.
I was gonna say that might also be the chance that he hits that tree and explodes himself. That's exactly what ended up happening. Well, 9 versus 26 Russian players have started killing one another. It's not gonna work your way. Don't allow Finland back into it. Russia, if you want to win it, might as well take it home in fashion. DS falls now as well. Now, as you were saying, players are gonna start folding to the blue as phase 3 connects.
Yeah, but it becomes at a point now where actually a lot of that Russian team is stuck in the blue on foot. And if they lose like 10, 15 players to the circle here, maybe the 8 could do something. But if they get shut down before they also can get to the circle, which seems to be happening right now, I mean, it seems like neither team can really get to the zone because they're all fighting outside the blue. I mean, there's a couple players in now. We see, I think it's 3 Finnish players and two Russians.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to think that given Russia has more than 4 times the player count, and you can see how many vehicles are moving in now as well, it's GG.
Yeah.
Unless if they start literally murdering each other just because they want to play a 4th game, this should be the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, even if you look at what little Finland has left, they're so split up. You know, I think they're in a 3-1, you know, 3 and then 3 1s, right? Realistically, you have to find some way where Masuli gets like 10 kills in the southeast.
Yeah.
And then even then it's a 5 versus 14. So yeah, I mean, I'm trying to find a way it happens. I just don't see it. But that might be it. Russia, as you said, if Russia starts killing, if they do a Turkey and start losing a bunch of
former team captain pans the current team captain. I like it. There's a bit of a mutiny going on, maybe. I'm not sure. Could be that that's the case. Now Battling gets run over. The mutiny is in full effect. Full effect confirmed. Battling has fallen. Here you have the remaining Russian or Finnish players, I should say. 5 of them. 4 of them are here. The last one's on the other side. Flag has heard and seen them. What can you do here? This is going to be Alamo all over again.
Although the colours are right for that as well. The colours are perfect with the blue being in a bit of a Russian headlock right there. But yeah, Nickel and Co here in the middle need to do something special to the Russian armada. Is it going to happen? I mean, the kill feed, it's very Finnish. They're starting to pick off players one by one.
The other one's pushing forward, and as I was saying, I mean, don't allow for Finland to get a chance into this because they are good players. I mean, yes, you might have the player like the numbers advantage 4-1, but as you can see here, these guys know what they're doing. What I was about to say though is they cannot start losing players. Now they lost 2. All of a sudden, it's a 2v20, and that might just be too much.
Yeah, at worst, you have to be rezzing your knocks. You know, if someone's getting knocked, you have to res them quickly. But I think as soon as the Russians are working out where one guy is, they just crash it with 5 players now. And yeah, I mean, every time there's these trades coming in, realistically, it's all she wrote. I think Zoom might be the last one up. I think
he is. Yeah. Soon, 1v18. Are you going to deny the kill? Or are you going to get yourself some extra screen time? I was thinking, if you throw a pan straight in the air, can you catch it with your face and kill yourself?
I'd like to see her try.
He doesn't have a pan, which is that's the strategy.
I think it might be a she. I think it's a she, not a he. But anyway.
Either way. And doesn't have a pan, so it might not matter all that much. Oh, now they know. Now they know. Lucy is down. There's going to be more to follow, though.
Run. Is this like, are they going to go one by one? Zoom has to win 17. Oh, no.
He eliminates himself. I knew that was going to happen too. That is so dumb. Either way, I like the effort. Finland down 3-0. Wow.
Janus just obliterated one of his teammates at the end there. But yeah, I mean, what can you say about that? That was just, I don't want to say a mismatch. It just kind of felt like as soon as Finland had that big deficit from this Azahar fight, it was that was the game over. And then they just tried to do something. They tried to take a gunfight. It didn't work out. Every time they took one of these gunfights, they just lost. And once you start losing gunfights early game, and the advantage comes like this, where it's 9 down, I think that's pretty much game over.
Yeah, I feel like game 2 was the turning point, or what could have been the turning point. But Russia were just like, I mean, there were many ways I feel like where Finland would have won game 2. Unfortunately for them, it didn't quite come to be, which also leads us with the result of a 3-0. But again, that shows us that the 3-0s aren't always 3-0s, as in, they wiped and they wrecked them 3-0. It wasn't like full-on clean sweeps all the way through, the same way we saw with Turkey earlier. There were moments where Finland could have gotten a couple of, maybe even 2 games out of the 3 here, which would have made it look completely different, because who knows what would have happened on Sanok, I mean. And then we would have had a final game potentially on Erangel once more, right? Where with a few circles, maybe it could have gone in the favor of Finland. So Russia going down 3-0 to Turkey might not have been that big of a shootout as the score might lead us to believe.
Yeah, now we're going to see a CIS rumble, as I'm going to call it, with Russia versus Ukraine. I think it's tomorrow, right? So with that, I think it's really interesting to see, because if you look at what we've seen tonight, Ukraine got smashed and Russia smashed. So is it going to be the same thing where Russia comes in and smacks up Ukraine and just asserts their dominance going to the final? But I kind of feel like that. I said both of these games could be close at the start of each of them, and it didn't really happen. But I'm looking at Ukraine-Russia in terms of the rosters. Tomorrow, that should be a close game. Like,
I would think so too.
Yeah, but
I would think so too.
We said that tonight about both games. They've both been 3-0s. So whether we'll see the same thing, but I kind of feel like if you're the team coming into it as the disadvantage, you need Sanok in the first 3 for me, because Sanok is a big question mark in terms of
it's kind of the coin flip.
Yeah, and so if you can use that to, let's say it's map 2, map 3, if you can reset the momentum of the other team, flip the way the series is playing out, that's a really important matchup, I think. And the fact that I think here we didn't see Sanok on other maps just sort of cemented it as a 3-0 for Russia.
True. Let's take a look at the brackets now and see how things have shaped up. Ukraine and Russia, as you said, will be going up against each other. That's going to be taking place tomorrow. And then one of those 2 teams will be facing Turkey in the finals of the EMEA Nations Royale. I don't want to write Turkey off as the winner yet, because there are ways where they don't win, but they have been playing incredibly well. You gotta give Turkey credit for having gone, because I mean the team that goes from the upper bracket to EMEA finals is the team that hasn't lost a single match, and that's Turkey, and that's impressive.
Yeah, and then you go back to the fact that they're back-to-back champions. They haven't lost a series ever in Nations Royale, ever. That needs to sink in about how dominant they have been in this game mode. Coming to the final again, not losing a map like in Season 2, where they didn't lose a map for the whole thing. Are we going to see that again? I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean, if there's ever a boss fight in Nations Royale, it is Turkey.
I would feel so too. They have been playing incredibly well, but let's not make it all about them. There is going to be more PUBG Nations Royale coming your way later tonight. It's going to start, I believe, at 1:30 a.m., which is in somewhere around 2 hours and 40 minutes.
So 4 hours,
wait, 4 hours? What do you mean?
Can we do maths?
4 hours?
Oh no! It's 1:30 your time, isn't it? Not 1:30 my time. I need to sleep more. I feel
like my math was pretty on point with that. In any case, we're going to take a break, guys. We'll be back later with some overseas PUBG. You'll not want to miss that. So if you're maybe waking up now, make sure to set your clock, get ready for it, because we will be back with more PUBG coming up later. So see you guys in just a couple of hours.